Welcome back to Viewer Discretion, a podcast where me and my co-host David Dennis Jr. discuss TV, movies, entertainment. It's been a break.
Yeah.
I feel refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm excited to not talk about Love Island. And I'm especially excited to talk about our first movie.
Yes.
We're going to be reviewing. Yes, there will be a grade at the end. I
Yep.
spiked that on you.
Mm-hmm.
A movie that was the first movie, full disclosure, I've seen in the theater in maybe a year because I have a 23-month-old child and a movie tax. So usually I'm waiting for streaming these days. But I went to see Superman, which we are here to discuss. Superman, a movie about how the strongest, fastest person-ish in the world could only save the world by adopting a dog. That's my takeaway. No, there's a lot more. There's a lot to get into. Superman, for those, if you haven't seen it, it's been 2 weekends at the box office. In those weekends, it has made over $400 million. So it is undeniably a box office success. We are going to talk about a lot. This movie is so much to unpack. The themes, Superman in the news. I want to actually talk about that box office number a little bit with you. We're going to talk about our own histories with the comic. Emphasis on comic because we've got a subject matter expert here in David Dennis Jr., who is a comics guy. My history is more on the TV movie side with this. But I first wanted to get things going by just kind of asking for you for your 30,000 foot view. You are the man of steel in this situation, flying above. What'd you think? Like, did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it more than I thought I would. I mean, I like James Gunn. I think James Gunn, I have a lot of faith in him and these things. But Superman as a character is just hard. It's hard. He's a hard character, I think, to like and to make interesting for a lot of reasons. Like too perfect sometimes. There's like too much of the like moralizing there, and I have my own beliefs on like vigilantism that makes me not like certain stories of Superman, things like that. But it works, and it was a superhero movie, a rare superhero movie that said things, that tried things that were interesting, and it is WOKE woke.
We'll get to that. The controversy,
right?
Which I think is undermined a little bit. Like I had to start with the box office because I think that in itself, the success of the film does undermine the controversies to some degree, to be honest. People vote with their dollar. But yeah, first I'd like to just say that I also really liked it a lot more than I thought I would. I wouldn't say like love. I didn't come out of this thinking it reinvented the superhero film, and that'll be reflected. We'll see the grade. There's flaws, which we're going to talk about. But I'm aligned with you. I think, and this is kind of going to touches on what I like the best, but the movie had a strong point of view, both in terms of the themes, some of the real world resonances, but also just the artistic nature of it. James Gunn, the auteur, definitely stamped his point of view on it. But I really, really loved Superman, and I do not love Superman. I have definitely a history of consuming media about the character, which I'll talk about, but he is not someone I have ever really thought of as compelling, I'd be honest. And I think he made this movie, maybe even more so than any other Superman film, made a case for Superman himself as a compelling character. So I guess I'll just jump right into that. I wanted to start by each of us saying what we like the best. And I guess I'll just start there. Superman himself, I put in our notes, is what I like the best. He is very, obviously his powers are well known. His kind of general vibe of being very straight-laced and a little corny is well known. I thought this film leaned into it in a way that actually it's fun, even in moments where I like cringed a little bit, like maybe being nice is the real punk rock. I loved that James Gunn and the actor David Cornswet, who I thought was fantastic. I love that they defined him as a character, and I think that's what really was the most difficult task with this entire film.
Yeah, I mean, Superman, like I said, it's just a hard dude to like or care about. Like as you've seen, I've million comic books. I've probably read a handful of Superman, and like Smallville, all that stuff. It's just hard to get into him, and I think they, like you said, I think they defined Superman in a really definitive way, right? Like I know who this Superman is. I feel like I know who Clark Kent is. and where they fit together. And I love that this was a Superman that made sense, right, for the times, right? Like, I think, as I kind of alluded to before, I hate vigilante superhero stuff. Like, I just think that the idea that you need Superman to go fight crime is sort of based on this archaic idea of crime, and we don't really need that anymore. And so they said, we're going to have a Superman that really looks at the world and says, how can I make it a better place? And it's flawed. He's flawed. He checks Twitter, like he's he's like a guy, and he has a big heart, and he does a monologue at the end, which you kind of like, but that's just his character. That's who he is, and I think they were not afraid to lean into some of the stuff that makes Superman corny, but it was who he is.
And I think that the Gunn did a good job of sort of positioning that idealism as his greatest weakness at times. Yeah. There was a scene that I thought was really telling, and this is something that there's been similar scenes like this in the Superman history, content wise, but the scene where him and the Justice Gang are trying to save New York from the kaiju like monster, and he takes the time to save a squirrel.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really smart, and because it's annoying.
Yes.
You, the audience, are watching that, and you're like, "Really, dude? We're really saving it. Like, what are we doing here?"
Yeah.
And there were a few moments like that throughout the film. He turns himself in to the government, even though at that point we know it's like a bad decision. There's the interrogation scene, which I want to talk about in more depth with Lois Lane, where it becomes obvious that his idealism is you the viewer, are being asked to question it. She correctly positions it as naivete, right? Yeah. And I thought that was really astute. Like James Gunn, they were like, okay, this is who he is. We are leaning into everything you know about him, but we're also interrogating it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really smart. And Gunn's sort of, he has a lot of tropes and tendencies, shall we say. But one of them is like, he really likes irony and like sarcastic characters.
Yeah.
Superman is like anti-irony. And he didn't try to make him ironic. He didn't give him one-liners. He didn't make him sarcastic. He made everyone around him that way. And I thought that decision, the way he positioned that character, was just really smart. It was one of the most convincing sells for him as a main character that I should care about that I've ever seen.
Yeah. So James Gunn, one things that he does is he always like gives us a character with an exterior, and he finds the heart of that character, right? Yeah. Like a Rocket Raccoon, or a Groot even, or, those guys, or even with John Cena, what I forgot who played, on that show. And so
he's bigger.
Like, yeah. So you find, like, you have the character and he'll find the heart, right? But Superman's heart is like already there. And so he made it to where it was, you see the heart, but you find where the origins of it are, where he's going with it. And I think that was a really interesting turn, because I think it challenged Gunn. You could feel like he was really challenging himself to find something new with Superman. And I like the fact, he didn't try to make like a bad Superman, or there wasn't this, edge to Superman that you were going to feel like, oh, he's made a cool dude. He gave us Superman and created a world in which Superman would become likable by the end of it, which I think was really nice.
Yeah, it's a movie about maybe not nice being the new punk rock per se, but it's a case against coolness in some ways. Sort of flowing off of that, I thought the casting in this movie smashed it.
Yes.
So honestly, top to bottom. But let's start with David Corenswet. Had you watched him in anything? I mean, I was looking at his filmography. He was in a couple of Ryan Murphy shows. He had a small role in House of Cards, which of course Rachel Brosnahan, I remember more from that show, was in. He was in the films Look Both Ways, Pearl. He was in We Own This City, and had a supporting role in Twister.
Nope. Nope. Did not. I don't think I'd ever seen him, which was cool. I mean, I think I liked it. Yeah, because even now when I see him in interviews, I'm like, who is that dude again? And it's like, oh,
yeah. I mean, obviously he has the look, right?
Yeah.
Chiseled in the chin and the hair and the dimple, but I just thought he was great. I don't know. I really loved him in this. I thought the big three all were great. Rachel, who's most known for Marvelous Miss Maisel. Have you watched that?
No, I had not, but I'm familiar with
The funniest in her, whenever I think of that show, I worked the red carpet at the draft a few years ago, and I was asking players who were being drafted what their favorite show was, and it was like, Power, Game of Thrones, and Bijan Robinson was like, I just love the Marvelous Mrs. Anytime I see him like on the field. But anyways, she's great. I thought they had like legitimate chemistry, which is not something that's always been present in Superman cinema. Nicholas Hoult as like he is Lex Luthor. He's the most known entity, I feel of the bunch. I mean, he's been in a million stuff. You guys know him from X-Men, The Menu, The Favorite, Nosferatu, etc. I read that he thought or auditioned for Superman or was interested in that, which is kind of crazy.
Could not see that happening. I want to talk about his Lex Luthor. Because I think one of the things that you run into with Superman is that they make Lex Luthor cool. And like a lot of times when you make Lex Luthor cool, it makes Superman not cool by comparison, right? Like the Superman that came out, which is the doomed Superman of, I think, 2005 or whatever.
Superman Returns.
Yes.
The one with Brandon. That one is awful.
It is awful, and it has a lot of people that we can't even talk about anymore. But like I tried to watch it recently, and I saw the opening credits, and I was like, yikes. It's like it's like Ahmad Rashad's groomsman. But anyway, so basically, but you made Lex Luthor really cool. He was the star, and it took the acting in both of these guys, both Superman and Lex Luthor, where like Superman resisted the need to like overcool himself, and Lex Luthor was not cool. Like he was a dweeby billionaire dude, and it made you want to root for Superman even more. And that's in the direction and in the acting itself.
Yeah, it was very modern. It was very clearly inspired by the tech bro billionaires of the world who are motivated by, I think, a lot of the same things that they isolated with this character: envy, the desire to prove the brain over brawn. We'll talk about that, of course. I think they did something that was kind of actually quietly difficult, which is they made him not cool, but they also made him believable as a counterpart and somebody who was difficult for him to overcome. The way in which he rises to power and then, in the middle third of the movie gets the upper hand was very credible. The scene where Superman goes into his office and he's like, just give me back my dog, man. Like, that Lex didn't seem cool in that scene, but he was believably more powerful than Superman in that moment. So that, I guess that is what I'll start by saying. Superman, great. Casting, fantastic. What is something that you loved about this movie? What worked for you?
Mr. Terrific. Yes.
Yeah.
Justice for we'll get to that in a second. But Mr. Terrific, I thought the way that they did the entire Justice Gang actually was great. It was funny, but they were still kind of likable, and it wasn't too much into parody. Like I liked it. Guy Gardner is a perfect character for this, like because Guy Gardner is a D-bag in the comic books. I thought that whole supporting cast was really good, in the way I like that, and my man who played Mr. Terrific, who
Eddie Gathegi. I just looked up. I know I'm saying his first name right.
Yeah, Eddie.
Eddie Gathegi was Mr. Terrific. Nathan Fillion, who's been in a ton of stuff, was Guy Gardner, and then Isabella Merced, who was in the last season of The Last of Us. Yeah, most notably to me, played Hawk Girl. So that was the Justice Gang.
Yes, and Eddie, who was victim of the worst death in like movie history. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember when they killed him in X-Men First Class? I don't know if you remember.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yes, they killed him. He was Sync in X-Men First Class, an unkillable character in a movie that takes place in the 60s, and they explained like segregation to him and then killed him halfway through the movie, and it is one of the more infuriating things that I've ever seen in a movie, let alone a comic book movie. So to see him come back and get this really cool character that did not just totally fall into like the sidekick trope with Superman, who had a lot of stuff that he was doing and who is going to go off in his own things, was poetic for me on that level.
When the Justice Gang showed up in the aforementioned kaiju scene, and they're sponsored by Lord Tech. It actually reminded me a lot of The Boys, which is also a show about like the privatization of the superhero industry and whatnot. I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
This was the most James Gunn. Oh, here comes the ensemble and the one-liners and the humor. And I was like kind of groaning because it just felt like James Gunn Guardiansing Superman too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I by the end of the movie, I was all in.
Yeah.
I thought some of that was the actor. Like the lines were legitimately funny. Most of the humor in the movie is Nathan Fillion, basically.
Right.
But Eddie and Isabella also have Hot Girl, Mr. Terrific also have good one-liners. But I thought it was just the right touch of ensemble. He didn't hit it too hard, and I was impressed. I also, again, speaking of to this like ensemble aspect of the characters, the Daily Planet, man. All of the actors that they had playing the other reporters who worked there with Lois and Clark, led, of course, by Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen, who I want to take full. We gotta take a minute. But also Wendell Pierce was Perry White. Beck Bennett from SNL was Steve Lombard, who gives him some comic relief as well. All great, funny, like not too much.
And a random dude at the end who had no lines but was survived in the ship. I don't know what he was doing there.
Can we talk about how the entire fate of the universe depended on Jimmy Olsen's Riz game?
Yes.
And I actually think I saw some people didn't like this. I loved that he, in the middle of like the world ending, Metropolis being split in half, them unable to find Superman. It took him like a full 30 seconds to agree to hang out with Lex Luthor's influencer girlfriend.
Yeah. I think one of the things, so this hits on two things that I think that are hard to do, right? Is that Jimmy Olsen, I think in general, like we talked about them knowing what to do with Superman, they knew what to do with Lois Lane, and they knew what to do with Jimmy Olsen, which I think are two things that are really hard to pull off. And they got the Daily Planet right, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of times it's hard to figure out where Lois fits in all this. Like I think about Batman and Superman and Amy Adams and Lois Lane, and she's and they're just and like the way they get journalism is kind of annoying, and the way they get the newsroom is kind of annoying. It's like you've never stepped foot in a newsroom or anything. And of course, this is still a superhero movie, so it's not gonna we're not gonna get all the intricacies of journalism, but it fit. Like the Daily Planet fit as a character. Even to the point where they're like, everybody, we're journalists. We know that Superman and Lois Lane are making out. Like, period. These things are not, you can't hide this from us. All that stuff, I think, made a world. I mean, James Gunn is a world builder. And I think him building this world with Jimmy Olsen and having him his own storyline that worked, it was really good.
The role that the Daily Planet staff played in also saving the world was believable, important. Like that they had to publish the story proving that Lex had struck a side deal to take over Jahanpur or half of Jahanpur, whatever. The other thing I thought I put this as the thing that really worked for me, and I want to talk to you about, was the Lois interrogation scene of Clark, start to finish, really, because it starts with them making out, and that was when I first thought, oh, they have like legit chemistry.
Yeah.
That was like pretty hot, honestly. Yeah. And then when she interviews him, it is. Sorry, he's Superman, not Clark, really, in that environment, which you can tell because he's not going hunching over. But essentially, the movie opens, of course, on it's already happened that he has stopped the invasion of what is being portrayed as a third world country, and it's been divisive. And they show like a bystander initial saying, "Did you really have to do that?" And when she interviews him, I talked about this with the naivety, she like is basically interrogating him on whether or not he's thought this through, because it's very obvious Superman is not familiar with the intricacies of geopolitics per se, and he just went in. He's like, yeah, but people were going to die. Yeah, and she's bringing up a more complex worldview. I thought that was really interesting. I thought that achieved a lot. One, it again kind of built up toward this characterization of her as like a credible, interesting person who does her job well. It also introduced what we talked about earlier, which is the sort of thematic, or I guess conflict, of Superman perhaps being a bit naive. What did you think of that scene? Did it work for you? Because it was a pretty pivotal scene in the film.
So I'm gonna start when I saw it in the trailer. So when I saw it in the trailer, I was so against it. It felt like, I was like, do you really want, in this sort of like guy bro world, right, Superman like yelling at his girlfriend in the trailer,
Oh,
and
he
I
gets
was
mad. Yeah.
he gets mad. And we see that in the trailer, and I was just kind of like, what kind of like what kind of I was thinking, is this going to be like a big bro movie of like Lois is kind of annoying, and so, that kind of gave me that feeling. But when the context of the movie, it does. It makes total sense. Especially with the idea that Superman is 3 years into being Superman, right? So he's just going out, he's working at the Daily Planet, and he's like, this thing is happening, I should go do something about it, which seems very basic Superman, right? And it's like, what happens when Superman is proactive about a thing, right? Usually some big monster comes to Metropolis, he goes out. Somebody tells Superman what to do, he goes. And Superman is being like, I'm going to be proactive in saving the world, which to me has always been the best Superman. Like when Superman goes out and does something where he's like, because I think one of the big critiques of Superman as a person is like, why isn't the world a better place? Like, why isn't the world just full stop a better place because Superman is there, right? Why are you losing fights to Elon Musk and not going out there and making the world better? And this is a Superman that is actually intending to do that, but it's complicated, and Lois Lane represents the complication. And I think that's a big heart of the movie.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I thought that scene just really captured that tension really well.
Yeah.
It also, by the way, introduces what you allude to, which is Superman checking social media.
Yeah.
I don't know why they went with Super Pooperman was right there.
Right.
I was like, Super isn't even clever. He's like, that one bothers me. Yeah, I thought it did a good job of setting up the actual stakes of the film, which isn't, can Superman win this one fight, but can Superman make a case for himself and for pure goodness in an age not just where people are quick to turn against him, but there's complexity. Who's bad? Which is the government good? It's not really clear in this movie whether the U.S. government is on his side or not, and it's kind of a nuanced thing. So I thought that was good. I thought that was great. So my next question was what needed work. So we talked about what worked. What needed work? You can go first.
Villains, Superman villains. Lex Luthor I thought was great. Like you said, I thought that they kind of superpowered Lex Luthor enough to where he was credible. Like he's building interdimensional portals and stuff like that, where it's essentially a superpower, right? So he's a credible threat. I think the fact that they had to use a character from the Authority and not an actual Superman villain, and the woman with the the claw hands was kind of like a testament to how hard it is to make a compelling Superman villain. Or one that's likable. I think of all the villains we've dealt with Superman, not a lot of them stick. I mean, I think the fact that we got a clone of Superman as the guy who he's fighting. Yeah, like I just kind of, that was, the same thing happened in the Wolverine, like Old Man Logan, the Wolverine, last Wolverine movie, where it was a clone of him. And I'm like, Sabretooth's right there. Like, why is he fighting a better clone of himself? And, I just felt like we could have gotten some better than a clone. Even though I think it's possible he may come back as Doomsday later, but that's still not a good payoff for having a clone of Superman be the guy we fight at the end.
So I have the exact same note, which is Ultraman. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the engineer was a little more compelling.
Right.
The Ultraman reveal was a big womp womp in the theater. No one cared. You know, I think, and it actually dovetails with my other quibble, which is I thought the fight scenes were kind of mixed. In fact, honestly, Mr. Terrific had the best fight scene in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And that was so James Gunn when he put Lois in the bubble and the Knowing the Whale song's playing and he's just killing dudes. That's peak Guardians right there. But it was awesome. It was super funny. The theater was like keyed up for that. Yeah. Whereas all Superman's fights are kind of mixed for me. I think I wanted to kind of run this by you. I think where they didn't, I think there was potential for them to be better because he hit on something really cool, which is Lex using basically code to design a perfect fight against Superman, B-Force 316. He's calling out that him and his crew in the little floating office are calling out what they want Ultraman and his Raptors to do. That's a cool idea. Yeah. Right? That's a cool idea. If the theme is brain versus brawn and tech bro, and we're like AI, can we reproduce a man?
Yeah.
That's a cool idea, but I think they didn't execute it well, which is to say I kept waiting for the moment when they made it clear that the tech could only go so far.
Yeah.
Superman's big win comes when he decides to like fly into the sky and then he sheds them on the way down. I didn't really that didn't play for me in the context of what they were setting up. So I just feel like they didn't really nail it in that.
Yeah, I agree because Superman was like, brain versus brawn, and it just kind of and I was waiting for this moment where he was going to figure something out.
Yes,
and he was just kind of like crypto, which hot take. There was like 10% too much crypto, just like 10. There was like 10%.
I agree with you there. That's also peak James Gunn.
I don't know. Yeah,
he loves his animals.
It was like 10, like a little bit. I could have done like 10% less crypto.
I think crypto as the solve wasn't really good. Yeah. So there were things I really loved about the dog, who I guess was based on James Gunn adopted a dog during the pandemic named Ozu, and they literally recreated the dog. And I read somewhere that when they were filming, they either he wrote a series of small women playing the dog, or an actual dog named Jolene, and they would play the song Jolene on the
Okay.
So I actually think they really nailed some of the characterizations of dog stuff. He actually, like the way Crypto's like a bad dog really reminded me of Lenny, and the way he's like, when he like licks the baby, for example, instead of rescuing it, those were good moments. But Crypto as the final solve didn't work for me.
Yeah, and
like you need a human thing. I thought, like, I feel like you're on the same wavelength as me. It was going to be Superman being like, let me do something completely unpredictable.
Yes. We were same exact page. I thought we were leading towards Superman saying he can predict my moves. Let me be,
because AI is just autocomplete.
Yes, right. Like, let me be a human. Like, he gave a speech about being human. Let me be a human and do something. And he needed his dog. Like, he needed his dog to be unpredictable. And I'm like, why don't like? I would have even taken Superman acting like Crypto. You know what I'm saying? Just being unpredictable. I thought that's where we were heading for it. Not just, let me destroy those cameras that have been there every time I've gotten my kicked by this thing. And that's going to be the solve here. You know what I'm saying? Like, that didn't work for me. Yeah.
My next question: how does this compare or differ from previous Superman movies, shows, comics? Okay. So this is where we can kind of talk about a little bit our history with Superman. So I have seen most of the, I would say, like the main Superman tentpole franchises. 1 and 2, the Richard Donner films with Christopher Reeve. We grew up watching those. Tailed off. I heard after that it's pretty bad. So there's Superman Returns, 2006, the Bryan Singer. Speaking of the cancel film, that's Brandon Routh and Kate Bosworth. Man of Steel, 2013, Zack Snyder, Henry Cavill. That's and then Amy Adams. And then there's Batman vs. Superman, Justice League. Those aren't really Superman movies. There's also TV Superman. Smallville with Tom Welling, 2001 through 2010. That show was forever, by the way. I watched most of it, I think.
CW shows last at either last one season or 15. Like, there's just no in between. I think we're in like season 12 of All American right now. I don't know.
Lois and Clark: The Adventures of New Superman. My family actually watched that when it was on 93 through 97. Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher. Dean Cain, who came out and said New Superman was too woke, even though he hadn't seen it. He made the news for that recently. Before we get to the comics, I want to get your thoughts on those films, TV. Do any of them mean a lot to you?
No, I was not. I've heard Smallville was good. I like CW shows, superhero shows. I think have been underrated. I thought I watched Arrow for a while, and I watched Flash for a while. Too many episodes, so too much to keep up with. Lois and Clark, very human, like not really Superman, like mostly human element type stuff. So it never really did much to me. The movies in our lifetimes have stunk. Like, I think not to invite terrible people into our mentions, but the Zack Snyder Superman thing is about as bad a reading of a character as I could think of. So I almost walked out of Batman vs. Superman. I do know that was just a bad movie.
A Man of Steel, I think, benefits in some ways from how bad Superman Returns was. Because at least a Man of Steel has a thesis. It's the wrong thesis for the
The thesis is what if I just don't what if I just
copy the Dark Knight?
What if I'm just not want to be a superhero anymore and I could just kill people?
Yeah, I remember because Nolan produced it, right?
Yeah.
That was it. Just reads like trying to rip off the Dark Knight to me. It's not really Henry Cavill's fault. I mean, I last time I saw, I don't remember thinking him or the actors.
I thought he was a fine Superman. Yeah,
particularly bad, but I just didn't think it got the character.
Yeah,
and that's, I think, a pretty common view. It was not a success in
Superman is not Jesus. What do you know?
So I did like the TV shows, but yeah, like Smallville and Lois and Clark, they're much more about a different side of the Superman story, obviously. Lois and Clark's basically like a rom-com.
Yeah.
Good. It was a good show.
Yeah.
Smallville is also, I mean, it's funny because Kansas does play an interesting part in this film. We can talk about that in a second. But, I think it took a really interesting premise and it had really good young actors and it's good. It's a good show. It really, I don't know if it holds up, but I liked it when I was, in high school when I watched it. So you grew up in the comics, which I did not. So to go back to the first question, like how does this retelling of Superman in this film jive with the comic book history to you?
So this took from a lot of the Superman stuff that I've liked. I've not liked a lot of Superman stuff, to be honest, because part of it, like my upbringing was like Batman, and like Dark Knight Returns was one of my favorite Batman books. They basically painted Superman as an enforcer for Ronald Reagan. So Superman was lame and all this stuff. And he just kind of was, that's who you feel he is. Right. And I think a lot of people have gotten me to care about him. I think this movie kind of leans into Grant Morrison, who was very pivotal in writing Superman comic books, and really leaned into that good heart, these like really feats of how can I make the world better and do these things. So he's trying things that are like ending global warming and stuff like that like using his science and intellect and stuff, which I think this leaned into. And the fact that he has something in his glasses that make you see a different person every time. Hypno glasses is a Grant Morrison thing he invented a while ago for Superman. So it kind of leaned into a lot of that. So that's the stuff that I cared about. But this was probably, other than the All-Star Superman of Grant Morrison and some of Grant's Justice League stuff he did with Superman, my favorite version of him. Wow. Like all there is a Superman issue, I think 775, I think that was one that I really liked, which basically he's fighting this superhero group that's all about marketing and all this stuff, and they're like killers and everything, and they want to like beat Superman on camera, and he has to sort of reimagine that. And I think that's kind of plays into that. But this is the moment we're waiting for. I wanted to show you an old Superman comic book that I found on the internet a long time ago. Then I had to go hunt this down. It has nothing to do with this movie. It has nothing to do with this, but I wouldn't ever talk to. It's Lois Lane. It's Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane, issue 106. It's from the 70s. And Lois Lane, it's called I Am Curious Black. And Lois Lane decides to go into a contraption and be a black woman for journalism. And she goes into little.
Oh my gosh.
And so she comes in as white Lois and walks out of the contraption as a black woman. And Superman has to monitor her just to keep her safe in the black neighborhoods. It's the Rachel Dolezal origin story. And it is.
I was just about to say, Rachel. It was like Lois Lane, the journalist, doing the reverse of the "What if Michael Vick was white?"
Right.
The magazine cover.
Yes. So that's basically the Superman history. This is on my wall. I keep this on my wall because it's one of the most important things in my collection. It's Lois Lane. I Am Curious Black. I
Am Curious Black. Lois.
What won't she do for journalism? But I say all that to say that this really got at the heart of, to me, the best versions of Superman. And I appreciate it for that. But sequel ideas, Lois Lane.
Starring Nick from Love Island as Superman. Right. He kind of looked like him. The hypno glasses were like weirdly important to me in this film because they throw a mention to them. It's so unbelievable that Lex Luthor wouldn't know, who is like this tech genius who uses like facial recognition, wouldn't be able to spot Clark Kent immediately. So I was actually very glad that they threw that in as something that threw him off of Clark's scent.
Which my son and I he watches Scooby-Doo a lot. There was a Scooby-Doo and Lois Lane cartoon, or Scooby-Doo and Superman cartoon. I know Superman and Crypto cartoon, right? That we watched recently. And it had the funniest joke I could ever imagine from a Scooby-Doo, where Velma, loses her glasses, and suddenly nobody in Metropolis could recognize her. It was so hilarious that Lois Lane was like, "Where's Velma?" And they were just like, "She's right here. She didn't have a glass." Unbelievable writing for whoever came up with that joke in the Scooby-Doo cartoon.
Did you like the Clark Kent portrayal, by the way, just as a side, because we don't really see a lot of Clark in this movie.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of Clark. I want to see some more of that, because it is going to be interesting how you make Clark. Like who is Clark Kent? I didn't get the feeling. I got the feeling we got a lot of Superman in and out of costume. But we only got the one scene, right, of him as Clark Kent.
Yeah, at the beginning.
Yeah, and that's so it'll be interesting because he's still a big dude, like he's still
he hunches over and pretends to be a nerd. It's not very believable until you find out about the hypno glasses, and you're like, all right, yeah. The other aspect, this is where I want to talk about James Gunn, because we're talking about how it compares. It's different from, James Gunn and Zack Snyder are about as different as it gets.
Yes.
In terms of like making superhero content. So you mentioned you like James Gunn a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess for those who aren't familiar with his oeuvre, it's Guardians of the Galaxy is what he's best known for. All three of the films. Also, he made Suicide Squad. He was famously fired from Marvel 2018 because there were some edgy tweets. Different time, by the way.
Right.
I feel like that wouldn't happen now. Rehired to finish the movies. He also made Peacemaker. We've talked a little bit, and he's been tapped to now oversee the future of Superman DC Studios, which we'll talk about at the end. We've kind of alluded to a lot of the hallmarks, I would say.
Yeah.
He likes irony. He likes bright colors.
Yep.
He likes ensembles and animals. He likes sci-fi.
Yeah.
There's a sci-fi incursion in the middle third of this movie. All of those things are in this film.
Yeah.
But I thought, as we've been discussing, he drew back just enough, maybe not enough on the animal aspect, but just enough to where it definitely felt like a James Gunn interprets Superman movie, but it didn't feel like Superman in Guardians, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think when you think about Suicide Squad, it did kind of feel like DC Guardians a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that this was him really trying to figure out how to center Superman here, because I think he knows what a lot of people would know is that if you'd had Hal Jordan as Green Lantern, and you'd had Flash, and you'd had like all of these cool characters, Superman would kind of get lost in the shuffle, and he would be less cool by virtue of that. And I think he really was intentional, again, pulling back and saying, how can we make Superman somebody that people want to continue seeing? And he did that, because I did not, usually when I would end up Superman movies, I'm like, Superman's like the sixth best person in most movies that I see. And this one, I like Superman. Probably walked out liking him as much as anybody else, like Mr. Terrific and Jimmy Olsen and Superman.
Yeah, it really felt like he let Superman be the sort of centerpiece of the film, and didn't mess with the character, and only enhanced it. To go back to we've been talking about how much we love that,
and because also you got to think about what his jobs have been like. With Guardians, he was able to like do his own thing, and then it just fit into something that was already there. Like, he's creating his own DC world, and he needs Superman to be a cornerstone of that, and he understood the assignment
completely. He had to If you came out of this movie thinking, oh, it was a pretty good movie, it was funny, it had some good fights, but I don't know about Superman, I would have been a failure. I think he had to make a case for the character in 2025. Mission accomplished. Did we like the story? Because we haven't, when I said what worked, we've been talking about mostly the characters and the actors. But the film, the actual shape of the story, like most superhero movies, there's kind of like three pieces. The beginning, the opening setup, Superman just had his first defeat. We set up a world around him. We introduced the characters. We learned about the conflicts. The middle third is when people turn on him. The government partners with Lex. He turns himself in, the Pocket Universe stuff. And then the final third, he goes back to Kansas. The Daily Planet exposes Lex. He has the final fight. Generally, what did you think of the structure of the film? Were there any parts that you quibbled with?
It was messy. It was like a lot going on, but I in general, in art, I like mess as long as you're trying stuff, but I didn't know how the invasion would fit into all of this that's going on. I thought the Pocket Universe stuff could have been a little bit shorter. They're going into the black hole and all that stuff. Like, I kind of didn't need all that, even though one of the things that James Gunn has become, I think, part of what his stories he's telling is about, like, imprisonment and and the nature of imprisonment. And we got a ton of that in Guardians 3 with Rocket Raccoon, and making the audience sit in the cells, like sit in the like atrocities of jails and torture and all of that in both of these movies. And it seems like that's something that he's really passionate about. We had a full-on execution in front of Superman in this. We had Rocket Raccoon lose friends and guardians. And we saw an evolution of a prison that went from metahumans to people that just Lex Luthor just did not like, right?
Yes, like his ex-girlfriend. The execution was one of two things in this film that surprised me.
Yeah.
That was one. When they killed the hot dog vendor, I did not think they were going to kill that dude. Do you? I was, and it was but it was necessary, I think, to set up the stakes, because sometimes these films can feel a little bit toothless,
right? And
to get Metamorpho to turn and stop creating that all science fiction aspect of it. I don't know about, but he was creating kryptonite, and then he went to creating sort of a pseudo sun to heal Superman, all of it to save his baby. But point is, he had to see that, right? The other thing that surprised me is a very key part of the story, and it's another thing I really wanted to talk to you about, with Superman's parents said that stuff.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, the Bradley Cooper casting took me out a little bit. Sorry, but
I was like, it's Rocket Raccoon, and then
yeah, right. Bradley Cooper and Angela Sarafian play Superman's Kryptonian parents, Jor-El and Lara. So the movie begins with him giving him a message about, you're here to save the world, and when he's just got his kid, he's there to listen to it, and they're, the robots who are very James Gunn-like characters are like, they just soothe him. Then in the middle third of the movie, the engineer and Lex go to, which, by the way, I guess if I was smarter, I would have picked up the clone thing immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. Anyways, they break into his headquarters in Antarctica, and the engineer woman is able to decode the entire message. Mm-hmm. And they show the second half of the message that Superman has never seen, where the parents, his real parents, are saying, and by the way, if they resist you, show no mercy. Also, take as many women as you want. Have a harem. So, David, and then at the end, he goes back to Kansas at one point, which I found to be very moving, honestly, with his adopted parents. They give him this message of like, you are who. They talk about that, and they said, dude, you are who you choose to be. You are, you have free will. And then at the very end of the film, they said, play him the message from his parents. And instead of playing the original parents' message, he sees video of him as a child with his Kansas parents. Not going to lie, teared up a little bit. That's such a mark. But back to the message, David. The whole time I'm thinking this is fake, because the movie talks about like fake social media and whatnot. Like, what did you think? Were you surprised that because I would argue this is the most subversive decision James Gunn made in the entire film, was to have the message be real.
Yeah, and then made sure and said it 3 times that this was real, right? Like he made sure, like Superman said, everybody verified this thing was real, because he was doing interviews afterwards that were like, people still don't think it's real, and it's a legitimate, real thing. It rewrites the Superman origin story, right? It rewrites the idea of Krypton and what they're doing and who these people are, and which I think if they were going to do Zod again is going to make them even more relentless, because Superman's parents, Kal-El's parents, supposed to be the like kindest people on the planet, right? Who are trying to save it, and they're just like, go out there and conquer everything. It's a little bit of Invincible right in there, about like these people are weak and everything, and it is subversive. It changes so much of Superman. But it really, again, centers Superman as his own type of unique character. I think it made me think about the Snyder stuff, because the Snyder stuff was always trying to like reimagine the hero stuff, but it always ends up being like the worst versions of them. Like this rewrote something to sort of create a better Superman. It was after the movie ended, I was like, wait, that legitimately, there's no retcon for this. Like this is a thing that happened. Yeah, it's totally incredibly subversive.
They reinvent the character as someone who is not merely born to be good, but someone who chooses to be good in spite of a lot, frankly, who chooses to do good. When he goes back to Kansas, and that was another, by the way, decision to make his parents super country. They've not always been quite that country,
right?
He sits down with his dad, the Kansas dad, Pa Kent, says like, you don't have to be, I wrote it down somewhere because I wanted to get the language right,
which is much better than him Kevin Costner dying in the dumbest, the second dumbest death in superhero comics when he told Clark not to save him from a tornado, which he could have easily done, but whatever.
That's right. But he's basically just tells him like you have free will, right? Mm-hmm. And again, when I'm watching that, I'm thinking, wow, this is really happening. And then at the end, he hammers it home. Video of Clark choosing to see his Smallville parents, not Jor-El. Really interesting choice. Undeniably one of the themes of the movie, which is that empathy and humanity are things you can choose.
Right.
And that's pretty core to the Superman story. It's not new, but it's definitely a pretty overarching theme. There are a few other overarching themes I wanted to discuss with you. I wrote, what made this movie so 2025? We should probably start with the one that made the most headlines, the theme, I think, and created the backlash, which is this movie is very profoundly anti-fascist, and it's opposed to anti-immigrant sentiment. James Gunn himself said, Superman is the story of America, an immigrant coming from another world trying to make a life here. This awoke the outrage machine, despite being like a very a very obviously true aspect of the Superman story. But I'll confess to you, David, I saw that and I thought, okay, I'm sure, but this is just a superhero movie. I don't know how hard they lean into it. Oh boy, he does not shy away from this message in the movie. It is something they hit over and over.
So when the engineer is in the Fortress of Solitude, and she says, "I gave up my humanity to get rid of these people." Cue the meme because it was David leaning up on the chair. I was like, "Hello, we're going there." And I thought there was such a poignant writing, like that line, the delivery, the messaging, the deeper meaning behind that. 10 minutes into the movie is letting us know not only about humanity and about people trying to find a way, but what it takes for you to want to take that away from people, right? She became a monster because she was so much opposed to what Superman represents. And she made that statement was about more than her. It was about a whole bunch of people who do the same thing.
I think less than 5 minutes of the movie, because it opens with the Superman losing his first fight. He's coming back to Metropolis for round 2 against Ultraman. Lex says, the alien is on his way. Way back. Yeah. He's not a man. He's an it.
Yes.
When he goes on the move, he talks about how he's grooming us. He, the women thing, which turns out to be true, is something Lex leans into. He wants to take our women. He thinks he's better than us. I mean, they're really hitting all of the anti-immigrant talking points. And to your point, they have the engineer basically very bluntly saying she's lost her humanity in this pursuit. Through Lex's character, James Gunn conveys his point of view, which is it's driven by envy and fear. And it's not subtle, man. Like, it's pretty, like I said, I went into this thinking it was going to be overblown. I came out thinking like, whoa, this is like, it's a very strong point of view. You're kind of bleeding. There's the anti-immigration aspect, which Gunn talked about. And then there's the foreign invasion aspect. They're kind of two different things that blend together, but that's another very strong theme of this movie. I mean, the original conflict is between two countries that are very clearly, that are not America, Bravia and Jahanpur. There's been a lot of speculation over what they're standing in for. Jahanpur is brown people. I mean, they cast them as, the Baravian president is kind of a send-up of a lot of dictators, I think. The American government in the movie, again, makes it clear that they're their allies, the bad guys. So it's geopolitically, it's pretty clear, too, I think, about where he stands in this.
And they dropped that MF from the top of a building and killed him at the end. You know what I'm saying? Like, Hawk Girl just, like, there are two people who get killed, pretty much, right? Like, you have, the guy we talked about earlier, the vendor, and then this dictator at the end. And I walked into the movie and I was like, everybody's talking about this immigrant thing. That's another thing that I think that, like, we might want to be talking about. Yeah. And what's also fascinating is that so often these superhero movies get criticized because a lot of these people just end up being agents of the state, or they're furthering a lot of, even if they try to present as, going against what government wants, stuff like that. A lot of times they are just fortifying that and fortifying these ideals. There's none of that in Superman. And Superman is supposed to be truth, justice, and American way, right? And as I mentioned, my entry into like the idea of Superman was like this 80s idea that Superman was this lame dude who did whatever the president says, right? This guy ain't him, right? This guy is willing to, he wants to save people. And I think there's a point there where he is willing to actually, if the US government is going to be opposed to this, I will take them on too. Like, I think that that's something that I would not have questioned. And he just wants to save people's lives. And I did not go into the movie expecting that in the way that I was going into the movie expecting the immigrant thing. And this really, I mean, they're raising the Superman flag. There's this imagery that's there. And we learn that Lex Luthor is willing to just murder these people. Like, all of this is connected. There's an interconnectivity of invasions and killing people and anti-immigration and all, and like billionaire wealth. It's all intertangled, and you can't disentangle one from the other.
That's a really great point. It is all connected. And then in the end, that connection is fundamentally about money, which I think is, again, itself another point of view, which is like all of this stuff that's happening, anti-immigration sentiment, in foreign invasion, privatization of prisons, and all of this. Fundamentally, the motivating factor here is one man who really wants to control, more of the world. It's a point of view. It's a pretty strong stance that the director is taking, and I was surprised by it.
And it's Lex Luthor's speech at the end of like, I didn't care about having this place. I just hated you that much. I mean, a rallying cry of the last few years is cruelty is the point, and that speech was basically that same ethos.
Lex Luthor in this movie, all-time hater. Just a hater, man. I don't respect it, but I appreciate it. I was watching it, I was like, damn, he really hates him.
That's Kendrick Lamar levels of hatred coming from Lex Luthor.
Tech and AI is definitely a theme as well. We've talked about it. Brain versus brawn, the coding of the fighting. I think that could have been a little bit better executed, to be honest, particularly via the fighting. He touches on the social media as being like a destabilizing force, which, it's, what did you think of the scene with the monkeys posting misinformation about Superman?
In a vacuum, I thought it was, it makes sense. You could see the monkeys. The unfortunate thing is that this is going to be memed to be the most racist thing possible. Like, you and I are going to be getting these GIFs in our mentions for a while now, which is, I think, something I wish James Gunn had anticipated, because it's going to be monkeys in front of keyboards. But I like, because the whole idea of, because Lex Luthor knows harem is going to get people going, and like the harem thing is that, like it's down to the base level of human stupidity that is going to get the most attention, and you got the monkeys doing the thing, and I think that like really made a ton of sense.
Yeah, it was a little on the nose. I don't know if we needed that scene. I think we could have just said that he's got bots or something.
Yes, bots could have didn't need to do monkeys.
The influencer girlfriend, was obviously turned out to be a very important plot point, because for those who have forgotten, she reveals Lex's plans to Jimmy Olsen via her selfies. It's funny.
Not sure why Lex Luthor had her around, but
a little unbelievable that she was there as much as she was.
But maybe it's just lean into the fact that Lex Luthor was a loser, right? Which I think, he may just want a hot blonde with him to make him feel like less of a loser, which may be part of how she was able to hang around.
I thought it was interesting that he had his other ex look kind of like her. Look, this movie was a bit overstuffed.
Yes.
Both visually, plot-wise, the beginning, thematically. But all of these themes did make sense when you think about the Superman story, when you think about Lex Luthor. And if it felt a little bit on the nose in 2025, well, that's kind of 2025's fault and not Superman's fault.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
These are also, by the way, themes that this franchise has engaged with in different ways, correct? Over the course of history.
The whole tension from the beginning is, I'm afraid of what this alien is going to do when he's coming, and he's going to invite more aliens to come, and what happens when they take over, and we have to invest so much of our resources to making sure that these people are not overpowering us. Like that, all of that is in there. And there's this really deep fear of what happens when Superman decides to get involved with international law or do the things that like if Superman tries to, get rid of nuclear weapons or like demilitarize or one of the books I read was as a kid was a big old like 12-inch book about Superman trying to cure world hunger and finding out that other entities are like governments don't want that, and for me, like I keep saying, like the move away from vigilantism is just so important to me. There's a this is something I did mention in comic books. There's like DC is doing this absolute line now. It's like reimagining these comic books, these heroes, and Batman is not rich and he's trying to like actually overthrow the billionaires. Like he is trying to like get rid of corruption, and Superman essentially is working for like workers unions and trying to like make sure that they're safe and healthy. Like that to me is like what, like it moves the hero genre further, right? Like if you're a Superman, you have to fight crime, you're going to be bored. Like there's not enough crime for you to fight. And that is born out of this hysteria. Like Alan Moore, who developed Watchmen, has this belief that Birth of a Nation is the original vigilante story, right? Because it's based on fictitious ideas of crime and people who suit up under the guise of fighting crime, but they're actually just like making lives worse and killing people, right? And I think superhero genre has birthed out of that. And I think it's better when we have a Superman who's like, let me think about globally or think about other things differently. And I think that makes for a more compelling Superman. I think James Gunn is putting that on the big screen was trying to say something. It could be mixed up and messed up and a little convoluted here and there, but he was like trying is all that matters to me a lot of times.
I think it's not even so much that Superman himself is thinking about those things, but that the people around him are,
right,
or that his battles are being portrayed as being a bit more nuanced and complicated, perhaps, than they've been in the past.
Right.
And Gunn, I thought, did a good job of showing, as you kind of talked about there, like all the tensions in what does it mean for an all-powerful being to not only fight crime, but to have the capacity to reshape the world, to intervene. It's not quite as simple, maybe, as it's been thought of or portrayed, not just because of the geopolitical ramifications, but the blowback he'll get, which is something that Superman's always dealt with, like, this idea that, hey, he's not going to do everything. He's not going to be that popular. This is something he's often had. This is all superheroes are constantly having to brush up against their own unpopularity or the ungratefulness of humanity. But I think the way in which Gunn portrayed that ungratefulness was very modern and very interesting. Which brings me to my last question, which is kind of what's next. So we have a Supergirl movie coming out, which they teased at the end of the film when she comes back. Millie Alcock, I think she's name. She's from the Dragon Show, House of Dragons, and Sirens, to get her dog back. And we get a view of like how they're going to show her, which is like kind of this drunk kind of. She seemed very Suicide Squad-y. Yeah. Clayface is coming out in 2026. There's a new Wonder Woman, which is a franchise that's really gone off the rails, in my opinion.
The best. Did you see the comment about Super? There was somebody left a comment in the Rotten Tomatoes, I think, that went viral. That was like,
no, I can
call me. I was like, when I see this movie, call me Gal Gadot because I'm not gonna know how to act.
I thought you were going to say about Wonder Woman in this movie. I guess, does this film, I think, maybe just give you more confidence in the direction of DC and where this is all going? Because this was it. Like, this was his like opportunity to like make a case for himself as the guy shepherding this next phase.
Yeah, I like it. I think the next Batman movie should just be Bruce Wayne paying his fair share of taxes and solving crime Batman. But in Gotham. But I think overall, I like the way that's going. I think Gunn has an idea. I mean, the way that he's talked about, because I mean, the thing is, he leaned all the way into sci-fi immediately, right? And it's not trying to, create too much like down to earth or whatever. Like he's like, we're going to create this DC world and we're going to hit the ground running. We have Green Lantern Corps. We have these other dimensions, which I'm sure is going to lead to Darkseid at some point. The Clayface is really interesting because we have a Batman world that's forming, which I guess his Batman is different than the one that we have seen, right? I think we're doing different than the Riddler one that we just saw. which may or may never come out with a sequel. Yeah, that man. Yeah, I think that's different. So I trust Gunn with the vision. I wonder what the big bad is going to be. I wonder what the big overarching connection. Or maybe there won't be, but he seems to really be having fun and have some idea of where to take these things. So I'm into it.
I cannot imagine. I actually liked the Batman, the Robert Pattinson.
Yeah,
that one. It's very.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good.
A detective noir movie.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine Robert Pattinson's Batman and this Superman like having a conversation.
Right. I can't imagine them being in the same world. Which, speaking of Clayface, I don't know if you've watched the Harley Quinn cartoon on Mac.
Yeah.
Incredible part of DC lore there. Bane is one of my favorite characters in all of TV.
Final letter grade. I said this at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We're each going to give this movie a grade. I'll go first.
Okay.
Go an A-.
Woo! I'm going B+. We're close.
A- is high. I know it's high, but I genuinely walked out of this movie theater smiling.
I was nervous when I was like, let's do Superman, because I was like, maybe it's just going to be like, I was happy that there was so much to talk about. Like, they're so rare to come out of a superhero movie with so much important stuff to talk about, and so much that I like couldn't wait to have a conversation with. Probably a B+ instead of an A- because there was 10% too much crypto. But
okay, before we get to next week's homework assignment for listeners, Overtime, talk about things we're watching, thinking about. I'll go first here. We were in London last week, which for those who listen to this pod or listened last week know, because I was at the airport coming back. And I have a confession. I don't know, this is the wrong way to position it. I liked Lena Dunham's new show.
Oh,
it was good. It's good.
Oh, Mina.
It has Meg Stalter from Hacks, who's very funny. Will Sharp from The White Lotus. I thought it was good. I thought it was surprisingly nuanced. Stalter's tremendous in it. It's sort of like positioned as like a romantic comedy, which we'll connect to next week. It's called Too Much. I should have said that at the beginning. It's about like a girl who at the very beginning breaks up with her ex in kind of horror, who's also in Marvelous Miss Maisel, in horrific fashion, and her kind of coming to terms with her being like quote unquote too much for people. But I really liked it. I thought it was surprisingly poignant, and it really took me back to my 20s in some ways. The two lead actors are excellent. So it's on Netflix. I would recommend people watch it.
Nope. So I'm gonna veer off a little bit and not talk about something I watched. I just want to talk about Malcolm Jamal Warner a little bit, which, for those who do not know, died and drowned in tragic accident, which we found out today. His daughter was with him when that happened. She survived. People came out and saved her and couldn't save him. 8-year-old daughter. Malcolm Jamal Warner was, for those who do not know, Theo from The Cosby Show, and just a dude who, I mean, when you think about Theo from The Cosby Show, it's a guy that, like, as for me, I wanted to be Theo. Like, he was, you want to be him, and there's a lot of talk about the Huxtables as like the perfect family and the dad as a perfect dad, but we don't ever talk enough about Theo as the prototypical son and brother and just cool dude, right? You meet him first episode, he wants to drop out of school, and by the last episode is about him graduating from college, right? He just defined for me a lot of like Black boyhood as a kid, and then Black manhood growing up. And beyond Theo, Malcolm Jamal Warner like did just cool, like he did spoken word, he played music, he directed episodes of The Cosby Show, he directed music videos, he was in Malcolm and Eddie, he was in so much more stuff, and just lived this life that was like, I mean, it's hard, I think, for people in the 80s who embodied this character to go on to be something else. And he did. And it's just like one of those iconic people that you feel like you've known your whole life, who are going to live forever, like a Michael Jackson of the world or something like that. You just do not remember, or Prince, who you just do not remember a time when you did not know, when Malcolm Jamal Warner was not there. And it's sad. It's 54 years old and way too young. And we've dealt with so many of these, the Kobes and the Chadwick Bosemans and stuff like that. It's been a rough week. It's been a rough week to like deal with that, but I'm going to take the time this week and just kind of like celebrate him and all the stuff that he has done.
There's a great feeling that I had when you look up an actor who you remember from the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
Right? I remember him from Cosby Show. And usually when this is just after he passed away and the news came out, I looked up his, IMDb.
Right.
And so often it's just kind of like nothing.
Yeah.
And just to like open it and see like, oh man, he's just kept on like being a working actor. Like so many television shows, so prolific, just a wide variety of roles, network shows. And it was just, you kind of like, I don't know. You're like, oh, that's good. Like it's just not often the case, I find, especially with he's not a child, but like younger stars. And I think that was reflected in like the outpouring of like, I just saw so many actors coming out and saying, we worked together on this. He was so cool. We did this together. I don't know. That was a really neat thing for me to see because I just remembered him from that show and clearly has lived an extremely full life. So sad about the daughter. I didn't know that until you just told me. That's awful for her to see. So next week we are going to watch another movie and then we're going to pivot to a TV show after that. So we'll go from a boys movie to a girls movie. Materialist is streaming. I'm going to make David watch it. I'm going to make you talk to me about romantic comedies.
Okay.
It's the Celine Song movie with Pedro Pascal, Dakota Johnson, and Chris Evans is the other love interest in this. Supposedly it's like an anti-romantic comedy. I actually have refrained from seeing it. It hits streaming, I think today. Okay. So you guys should go watch it if you haven't already. David and I will be back to review that. Another letter grade will be in the offing. Let us know what you think about the movies generally and other stuff you want us to talk about. We don't just do shows that have love in the title.
There you go.
So this is a nice change of pace. I'm not going to lie. But we will recap the Love Island reunion. Don't worry.
Yep, it's coming. So much to talk about. Oh, my goodness.
I just don't like it. Like people anymore. Not all of them. That's not true. But it is. They are brutal. Okay, we'll be back next week. Thank you, guys. If you can, please leave a review. Rate and review. Check this out on YouTube or in audio. Viewer discretion. Thanks for tuning in.